In this video, I'm going to be comparing the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 to the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. If you're considering one of these watches and you're wondering some of the differences, you're going to want to stay tuned. Hey everyone, my name is Jeff, and on this channel I do all sorts of different tech reviews, tips, tutorials, and more, including reviewing smartwatches like the Galaxy 4 and the Galaxy 4 Classic. And I have done unboxing and setup videos, as well as an in-depth tutorial video about all the different features of these watches, and those will be linked down in the description below, or there'll be cards popping up here as well, where you can check out those videos that go a little bit more in detail than the bird's eye overview I'm going to be giving you in this video here. So let's go through the color options as well as pricing for these watches. Let's jump to the computer, and if we jump over to Samsung's website, you'll see that the Galaxy Watch 4 comes in two different sizes. We're looking at a 40 millimeter and a 44 millimeter for the sizing. The 40 millimeter sized watches are going to be priced at $249, and that's going to be for the Bluetooth Wi-Fi watch. The 44 millimeter is going to be priced at $329. The 40 millimeter, it comes in black, as you can see here. It's also available in silver, and then we've got a pink gold color that it's also available in. That is only for the 40 millimeter size. Now when you go to the 44 millimeter, they kind of change it up on you. Black is still available, but you've got the option of green, and then you've got silver. Now that is going to be for the 44 millimeter. Now these are the options for the Galaxy Watch 4. For the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, you've got two sizing options, the 42 millimeter or the 46 millimeter. And the 42 millimeter is going to be priced at $349, and the 46 millimeter is going to be priced at $379. Both of these sizes for the Classic is only going to be offered in either a silver or a black edition. So your options for colors for the Classic are a little bit more limited than they are with just the Galaxy Watch 4. And again, these are for the Bluetooth Wi-Fi options. If you want to get the LTE, whether it's for the Classic or the Galaxy 4 watch, they're all going to be $50 more than the Bluetooth Wi-Fi editions of these watches. So with all the different smartwatches that are out there, and if you've watched any of the other videos on my channel, I've reviewed things like all the Fitbit smartwatches and fitness trackers, Amazfit, Garmin, so just a whole different variety of different smartwatches, and they do everything from the health tracking, GPS, to running the different useful apps, getting those notifications, and even having those abilities to hopefully play some sort of music or stream music on the watch. You can do all those things with the Galaxy Watch 4 and the Watch 4 Classic. But I want to dive into specifically what the differences in these two watches are. So let's take a look at the Galaxy Watch 4 and the Classic, which is going to be on the right, and just do a side-by-side comparison. Let's start with the Galaxy Watch 4, and as you can see, so this is the silver edition, and this has an aluminum body, so lighter than the Classic, which has a stainless steel body. You can see the Gorilla Glass for the screen, and then we have our two buttons that are going to be on the right side. For the Classic, this has the stainless steel build, so it is noticeably heavier. It does have the physical bezel, which we'll play with in just a minute, and then we have our two physical buttons that are on the right side for the watch. So let's put the two watches on top of each other, and then I'm just going to spin them around for you so you can kind of see as far as thickness, and then what we have as far as backs. I'm just going to pull this aside, and you'll see here that both of these sensors have pretty much the exact back. And a big shout out to Tammy Tuhey, our latest viewer to find Tinker in one of our recent videos. And you're saying, how do I find Tinker? Well, Tinker is this little robot. He looks just like this guy on my shirt, and he is hidden in all the different videos on this channel, including this one. So keep your eyes out for Tinker popping up somewhere during this video. If you're the first person to spot Tinker in this video, let me know the timestamp or the amount of time into this video that you spotted him popping up down in the comments section below, along with your best comment, and you might be like Tammy, getting a shout out in one of our future videos, as well as we will put your name on our Tinker Forward Hall of Fame page. So on the Galaxy Watch 4, you have a screen size of 1.19 inches and 396 pixels by 396 pixels. On the Classic, you have a screen size of 1.36 inches and 450 by 450 pixels. So on the Galaxy Watch 4, you have a digital bezel, whereas I can just move my finger along the edge of the screen, and that is what's going to rotate through the different tile options that are on the watch. On the Classic, you have a physical bezel, which turns, you'll see the ridges on the sides, and you get a satisfying little click with each turn that I make on that physical bezel. There's also these time indicators, 5-minute increments going all the way around. And this is very handy. So if we go back to watch faces and I change a watch face, like right there, you'll notice those tick marks. Those are going to line up with whatever digital face you have installed. So something to note with different colored watch faces is the fact that you are going to see that noticeable digital bezel going around the side, which just kind of turns into that black ring. Now that black ring is where I slide my finger to change it to run through the different tiles. But for some watch faces, it is more noticeable than others. If you have a dark watch face on, you really don't notice that dark ring. So in looking at these two watches, the physical bezel that is on the Classic Edition definitely gives this watch more of a premium look and a premium feel, whereas on the Watch 4, this has a more simplistic look to it, maybe even more of a sporty look than the Classic. Something else to note about that digital bezel is there is a small or a slight vibration every time I go to a different one of these tiles. And that is fun to feel it, especially when it's on your wrist. It's trying to duplicate, I think, the clicking that you get from using the physical bezel that's on the Classic. I don't know if it's quite as satisfying. On this one, not only do you get that click, but you can feel the metal bezel clicking into place, so it actually stops as you are moving from tile to tile. That is quite satisfying as you are using it for all the different functions on the watch. You can also use the bezel, whether it's the physical bezel or that digital one, if you're scrolling through different apps you have. And I will say it's a lot of fun just turning the physical bezel when you are doing the same thing with your finger on these apps on the touch screen. It's almost just as easy to scroll through it this way. Not quite as satisfying. Something else I would note is it is very good, but I have noticed that as I drag my finger, you can even see here on the screen, it almost doesn't seem like it's as responsive as times as the physical bezel. Sometimes I really drag my finger quite a bit, and then it goes to rotating to the next tile. So I think it all depends on how your finger is being placed on that screen. But again, just not quite as responsive as that physical bezel, in my opinion. So on the Watch 4 Classic, here's what the vibration sounds like, or the clicking. And using the digital bezel on this watch, still not quite as satisfying as the physical one. So what features are most important to you about these Galaxy Watch 4 watches? Is it the health tracking? Is it exercises? Is it using it for water activities? Do you plan on changing watch faces? What's most important to you? Let me know down in the comments section below. So let's talk about the bands on these watches. Both these watches, the Galaxy 4 and the Classic, feature a silicone band, but there is definitely a difference. If you compare the Watch 4 with the Classic, you'll notice that this band actually has this little gap right in this area, and on the Classic they actually give you two different straps to hold the band in place. You have a traditional clasp on the end, and then you have a traditional clasp on the end of this one, but they do work a little different. So on the Galaxy Watch 4, you put the band through the clasp like you normally would, but it actually sits underneath the watch. And at first when I was wearing this, I thought maybe that would bother me. Now on the Fitbit, Sense, and Versa 3 watches, which I've reviewed on this channel, they actually do the same thing. And it doesn't seem to bother me. I don't seem to notice that at all. On the band for the Watch 4 Classic, it has the traditional clasp, and then you have two different straps to hold it in place on your wrist. Something else I wanted to point out in looking at the differences between these two bands is this one just has a very flat and smooth, again, I would say more of a simplistic or sporty band, whereas the Classic is, both of these are made out of silicone, but this one has this ridge that's going down on either side. It doesn't have a leather look to it. One of the closest competitors to the Samsung Galaxy watches is going to be the TicWatch. And if you're interested in finding out more information on the TicWatch Pro 3 or the E3, which is the slimmed down TicWatch version, those videos are also on this channel and they'll be linked down below as well. By the way, if you are interested in seeing a TicWatch Pro 3 and Galaxy Watch 4 comparison video, let me know down in the comments section below. If I get enough comments of interest, that is a video that I'd consider doing. So I did want to show you, I would say that I have average size wrist, maybe even just a little bit smaller sized wrists. I have 7-inch diameter wrists. So my wrists are probably, they're pretty thin, maybe even slimmer than some other people's wrists, but this is how the watch looks on my arm. I also noticed that there's these rails that go on the side, and yes, I've got a lot of hair on my arms. I'm sure I'm going to get comments on that, but I have noticed that the rails that run on the side with the bands seems to make a really large curve over my arm, and I've noticed that, you know, I guess it seems like even with the watch on pretty tight, that it almost seems odd that there's so much space between the watch and my arm, and I don't know if that's something Samsung did intentionally, but that is something that's different from some of the other watches I've reviewed. And then here you can see the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic and how it looks on my wrist. Both watches have a very comfortable feel. The aluminum on the other watch is definitely lighter. I almost didn't even notice it's on my wrist, whereas the stainless steel of this watch definitely has a little heavier presence on my wrist. And you can see on this watch as well, on the Classic, it has the rails and a very wide curvature going over your wrist. And if you are finding some sort of value out of this video right now, take a second and smash that like button, as it helps out this video as well as this channel, and I greatly appreciate it. So both of these watches feature 20mm bands, and if you're not happy with these bands, you can definitely buy others on either Samsung's website or places like Amazon. It does have an interesting bend to them, and you just use this pin to release the bands. And I will say, getting my fat fingers in there to release these bands is definitely a problem. I know that Samsung and Google are working together on the OS for these watches, and Google owns Fitbit, and I know on the Versa 3 and the Sense Fitbit watches that I've reviewed, they have the quick release bands, and you can kind of see on my Fitbit, you can just pop one of these bands right out, and that's how quick and easy it is. So after just messing around trying to get the pin out with my fingers and trying to line up the pins on either sides of these rails, I really have to say I've had a hard time just trying to change out bands on these watches. And you know, that quick release on like Fitbit, I wish Google, which owns Fitbit, would maybe sit down with Samsung, have a cup of coffee, and try to work out a better system for replacing bands on their watches, because this just is not the most efficient. So let's talk about batteries and charging these watches. So the Galaxy Watch 4 comes with a 247 milliamp hour battery, while the Watch 4 Classic comes with a 361 milliamp hour battery built in. What does that mean for you? If you're looking for a watch that's going to last you like a week or several days, this is not the watch for you. Samsung had kind of promised improved battery life in these Watch 4s, and I will say that at best I can get about a day and a half's worth of watch time out of both of these watches, even with the Classic having that slightly bigger battery. I don't personally notice it. So this watch is something, I'm using the default settings on it, and I'm basically having to charge the watch every other day if I'm using it continuously. It does have a battery saving feature on it, but that does limit things that you can do with the watch, and that's going to extend your life a little bit more. But you know, from just my testing, doing a run every other day, and then just using the watch with average use, like I said, I get about a day and a half's worth of battery out of it. Now, ways that I typically get around that charging of the battery is going to be things like when I get up in the morning, I usually leave my watch on the charger while I'm getting ready for the day. And then same thing when I am getting ready for bed, I'm usually charging the watch for about a half hour, 45 minutes before I go to bed. That, if I do that pretty much daily, that keeps the battery charged for me. Now, I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody, but that works really well. That also allows me then to charge in the morning and at night before I go to bed, and then I can put the watch back on so that it will do all the sleep tracking features and I can wear the watch to bed. For charging the watch, if you're going to fully charge it up, if you deplete the battery and you want to fully charge it up, for me it takes about an hour and 45 minutes to charge it up. It does have a magnetic charger with it that just connects into a USB port, and you can just put it on there. This is also convenient where if you want to lay the watch on its side while it's charging, you can use it as a clock. So both of these watches feature 16 gigs of storage. So if you like downloading music, if you like putting apps on your watch, you've got plenty of space. These watches also feature the 5 ATM rating, so they will resist pressure down to 50 meters in water. And now, talking about water resistance, I guess this is very interesting to me. These watches do have a water lock feature on them where you can set it so that if you go for a dip going swimming, the water is not going to start doing funky things with your screen. So it is made for some sort of submersion. It does have an IP68 rating, but when you go on Samsung's website or if you Google IP68 rating for Samsung, it says that they're not necessarily recommended for pool or beach use. You can get up to 30 minutes using them in fresh water. So I guess my question's about if you're going to spend this much money on one of these smartwatches and you're planning on swimming with it, I don't know how well I would trust it. I guess it is water resistant, so that if you do happen to get caught out in the rain or something like that, I don't think you have to worry about it. But as far as fully swimming and submerging with this watch, I don't know if I would fully trust it. So the watches work great if you've got an Android phone. Some of the questions I've gotten on some of the previous videos of the Galaxy Watch 4s, does it work with an iPhone? It is not going to pair with an iPhone. Now, I typically use Google Pixel phones, and I will say that it definitely pairs very easily with my Google Pixel phones that I have. I have actually done the setup videos where I show you the whole pairing process. However, Samsung does have certain features like the ECG, where you can take an ECG reading or get a blood pressure reading, and those are features that are only limited to Samsung products. So you do have to have a Samsung phone in order to use those abilities. I'm not sure if that's going to change in the future, but as of the recording of this video, using Google Pixel phones, I don't even have the option to take an ECG reading or a blood pressure reading because I don't have a Samsung phone. So which is the best watch for you if you're considering the differences between these two watches? You can save $100 by just getting the Galaxy Watch 4 versus the Classic, but you're not going to get that physical rotating bezel. I will say there is just something about having that physical rotating bezel that separates it from the Galaxy Watch 4, but if you're looking for maybe a little bit more of a minimalistic or a simple watch that's going to sit, that's lighter on your wrist, definitely go for the Galaxy Watch 4 versus the Classic. The Classic to me seems more of like a premium watch, and if you've got that extra money to spend, you might get a little bit more durability out of having that stainless steel build versus the aluminum, but it's going to have a little bit more weight to it. Other than that, I think both watches are great, and you just kind of have to weigh out what's most important to you. So I'm interested to know, which watch are you leaning towards? Let me know down in the comments section below. So I've talked about the differences between these two watches, but if you want to get more out of your Galaxy Watch 4, such as customizing notifications, customizing the on-wrist keyboard, putting music on your watch, connecting it to headphones, changing your watch faces, going through all the different workout options, the apps, and more, you'll want to check out my in-depth Galaxy Watch 4 video, and that'll be linked popping up here at the end of this video as well. My name is Jeff. This is Tinker Forward. I appreciate you guys watching. Please be sure to make every day awesome, and I will see you guys in the next video.